All right. Perfect. Yeah, I'm excited to hear these examples today. I think they're small pieces that you can bring to any course that are manageable to consider potentially implementing as an add-on, which in this environment I think is a nice manageable addition. So go ahead and let Krista take it away with PollEverywhere competitions.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to start with Kahoot because I feel like you have to see Kahoot to understand the differences with PollEverywhere competition. So if you haven't, if you weren't at the Halloween party, then please, you don't have to vote because you've already played this before. We're just going to play like 2 or 3 questions and then we'll switch over to PollEverywhere competition and we'll do some Parkinson's disease. So super fun. So this is really easy, Kahoot. The limitations with Kahoot is that it only can allow 50 free players. And so we ran into issues in lab when we have all of our students together, you can't do Kahoot. I will tell you, and Alexis will say the same thing, and Abby, overwhelmingly the students prefer Kahoot because you're gonna hear this really catchy music and it like really pumps people up. So without further ado, we'll just play a couple questions. And you can play different ways. We're just playing classic. You can play teams. So right now, if you want to sign on, you join at kahoot.it and then you type in this password. Can everybody hear the music? That's the best part. You can name yourself something. We'll see PollEverywhere competition. Originally, they couldn't rename themselves, which also adds to like the fun of playing these like online games. But Alexis got Katie involved, and she actually went in and did like a whole administration thing on PollEverywhere competition so that students can now rename themselves, which makes it a little bit more fun for them. Second try. That's pretty funny. And the thing that's different with Kahoot as well is you'll see stuff that's on the screen that's not on your phone. So if you're playing on your phone, you won't have all of the information you need. You have to look at both. So I'll give you like another 30 seconds because I want to make sure that we can get into PollEverywhere competition and then April can talk about FlipGrid. If you want to sign in, you can. If you don't have to. All right, so we'll play 2 questions just so that you get a feel of like how it is. So it matters how fast you answer. So what was originally used as the first jack-o'-lantern? So I believe on your screen, you just see the colors and not the answers. So you're really just doing color recognitions. So turnips was the correct answer. You just hit next. Second try is in the lead. You get points based on speed. This is the same as PollEverywhere competition. The faster you answer, the faster you get points. And so then you'll see who's in the leaderboard and the students get excited about that. So here's one more. Lamel was a popular Halloween drink in the 18th century. You can add images to the questions, which is nice. In PollEverywhere, you can add them into the answer choices, and I'll show you it's like really small. You can set different timers. That's the same as PollEverywhere competition to give people chances to answer or not answer. And apples. So that's Kahoot. It's pretty easy to use. You can, let me escape. So it's pretty simple. It's really fun for the students, and it's pretty easy to make too. So if you're in here and you want to create your own Kahoot, you can actually play other ones that have been made. So like when I made the Halloween trivia, I didn't realize that there's a whole bunch of different ones that you could actually just use other people's ones. There's a whole bunch of different stuff so that you can go in. So again, the main limitation is that only 50 students can play at one time. Whereas if we did it with PollEverywhere competition, because we have a license for it, everyone can play. So all 100 and something students can play at one time. If you want to create a new one, it's very simple. You just hit create new, and then you start. All these ones that have like the icons, that means you have to pay for them. So just ignore those. You just hit create. You can change your time limit. You put in your answer choices. You can upload your images. So again, very nice, very simple. It's not super hard. I made the Halloween one in under an hour, I think. So switching over to PollEverywhere competition. So just sign into PollEverywhere as you would normally. And then I have different ones. These are standard polls. The competition one looks like a little like champion cup. So when you create it, again, you're going to start by going to create, and then you just hit the competitions button. So instead of a multiple choice poll, it's over here on competitions. You'll, put in your questions. You can add images if you want. I'll tell you, like, the images are really small. And let's see, question one. And you can upload like URLs, other things. When you put in like the images, it's so, I don't even know what this, I'll put my signature in, here you go. You can add more options. And then you can create it and you can keep going and make more and more questions if you want to. If you don't and you want to stop here, you can, and you can go back and add them later. So this is what it looks like when you have an image for PollEverywhere competitions. It's very, very tiny, so it doesn't show up as much. And there's no image that you can put, to my knowledge, up here in the question. So again, a little bit of a difference. Everything's going to be blue and white. So let's go back. So that's how you create it. It's not that difficult. Just create and then go to the competition one. So let's play this just so that you get a feel for what this looks like. So you hit play, very simple. So if you'll switch over to PollEverywhere.com, so /KL Donahoe, all O's. Brooks is learning how to spell our last name, and I'm like, just put O's, man, just keep going. So it gives you some kind of, like instructions while you're waiting for people to sign in. You can get 1,000 points. It's just like Kahoot in that way. It's 1,000 points. The fastest speed counts, etc. Everybody logged in? Not yet, maybe. Okay, so no music. You'll notice that right away, right? So you can read the question and it goes at your own speed. So Kahoot, you kind of have to read it fast because it's going to go to the next slide and you have to answer. So which medication is first line for the treatment of dyskinesias in Parkinson's disease patients? So it looks just like PollEverywhere. It tells you again down here how many students have voted. So you can, again, keep track of it, decide when you want to cut it off. There is a timer here too. So the timer will also go. And then it locks it automatically. I didn't touch it. And then it shows you the screen and which one's correct. And then just like PollEverywhere or Kahoot, it'll tell you the leaderboard. So it'll highlight the people who are getting it right. So very, very similar to Kahoot. It's just not as, the students don't like it because it's not as fun with the colors and the music, but it works and it's free because we have that license from VCU and you can have, there's no limitation. I will say that the students tried to do this at Rokai because they thought it was the same thing. So we had a trivia for our induction ceremony and the student version, there's a 25 limit. So really they should have done a Kahoot instead because you can go up to 50 for the student version and only the first 25 could vote. So faculty, you have that bigger limit, but our students, yeah, it was like the first 25 could vote and then no one else could get it. All right, so There we go. If you don't rename yourself, you get this like guest. So that's what it was when we were playing this. And it was like everybody was a guest and the students were like, I don't know which one I am, and not as fun, but now we can rename them thanks to Katie. All right, so that's PollEverywhere competition and Kahoot. So you can kind of see the differences. Are there any questions about either? The students really enjoy, something that's, they're so competitive. So they really love really like doing either of these if you do either of them. One more thing I'll say is we did try Kahoot. One of the PGY2 residents, the psych resident, had Kahoot, and you can actually put video clips in it. So they were supposed to be watching abnormal involuntary movement scales for tardive dyskinesias and other things with antipsychotics, so movement disorders. And it didn't work because I think we had too many students signed on. He had the full version from his old institution, and the clips were really choppy. And it's nice because you can put like links and YouTube videos and stuff, but it just like completely failed. And he was good and he was able to adapt pretty quickly on the fly. He did a great job, but it did get overloaded with some of the YouTube videos.
Krista, can you share some of the lessons learned in using this? Like, because these things make sense, but I'm sure little things blow up or little issues occur where hyper competition causes unnecessary angst, or doing badly leads to lack of engagement, or
yeah. So I will say, like, best practice is we never use these for a grade. It's always just for fun. Usually we might give them, I think, did we give them extra credit on their professionalism score, Alexis, which is like 0.1% of their grade. So it's still like made them excited to play, but it really didn't affect much of anything else in lab. So I probably wouldn't do it for a grade because I don't even know how you would go on the back end and like, do other things. Things that have gone wrong, I don't know, we've troubleshooted them, like the renaming things and other things. Alexis or Abby, April, can you guys think of anything best practice? Or
I think one thing that was difficult when we did have like the point stuff was that like for the professionalism, when they do rename themselves, we don't always know who they are because it's like a nickname or something. So I think the students with PollEverywhere get a little bit more engaged when we when we do a little bit of kind of like hosting per se, like, really like hype it up for them because it doesn't have that music. So there's nothing else really to like get the like energy kind of flowing besides just the straight competition. But it was hard when we just couldn't tell like who was who. But they were pretty like open about it in the chat, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm in the top 10. And you could tell that people were really excited that they were doing well. So, but otherwise lessons learned, I'm like, you can't really tell who's engaged and not engaged other than the number of answers at the bottom. So like we do sometimes, if we see that we only have 90 answers and there's 127 people in the class, we say we're still waiting on those 37. Let's go ahead and get those answers in. So as our prompt to say like, we can tell that you're not engaged. But otherwise there's nothing else that really lets us know that they're not participating in this virtual world. So.
I will say this year we used, I had a P4 create a self-paced Kahoot for the students to review calculations because they always whine about wanting more practice with math. So the self-paced piece was pretty nice with Kahoot because it pulled the timer out, which is always a limitation with Kahoot because, unless you speed read, sometimes it can be really challenging. So that was something that I'd never used up until this fall. But the students seem to like it. And we just posted basically like the walkthrough of each question as a PDF separate so that when they were done, they could look through it. But that's another mechanism for it as well.
I've used the PollEverywhere competitions as a beginning of the for a review of the asynchronous material. So the first 5 minutes, we did a competition of 10 multiple choice questions to review what they were supposed to review before class. And the students liked it because they could see an anticipated version of exam questions. And it helped, and I posted the link later for them to be able to practice while they were studying with those questions. So I think one of the lessons I learned is that if you're going to do one of these in therapy or a patient assessment, the students tend to think that it might be representative exam questions. So it's great to link it back to your learning objectives in preparation for them to understand what they're going to be assessed on for the exam, and then to post it later so they can practice, because they like being able to go back and revisit and understand like a self-study of, oh, I thought it was this. Why did I think it was this? Let me go back and look at my notes and retake it and see if I get a better score.
That's all I got.
Thanks for all the best practice. I think it's a great idea to kind of reuse as much as you can, as you know, you've already created this content for them to play in during a live session. You know, why not make it something that's reusable, so you aren't necessarily duplicating effort and you're creating an additional resource for students. So I think that's a really great idea. Awesome. So next, we're going to talk about FlipGrid, which I'm excited about.
Well, you gave us the idea, so
Perfect.
you planted seeds. So I will apologize. My internet's probably going to crap out every now and then. I apologize for that. If it does, I can see everyone's faces freeze. So I'll just pause what I'm saying and pick back up in a second later when it unfreezes. We have a friend staying at our house for the Richmond Marathon that they're running virtually. And so everyone's on the internet at the same time and it's not exactly working well. So today I wanted to show you guys FlipGrid, which Katie gave us the idea of doing. And I believe Lauren also implemented it in Foundations as a way to introduce the students to one another and also to yourself. So we use this in pharmaceutical calculations, and it was our first graded activity that was due within the first week of class. And it was a really helpful tool for us to be able to figure out who the students were, put a face of the name, understand pronunciation of names. And we also asked them a couple of personality questions or get to know you questions along with it. So we asked them to introduce themselves with first and last name. We asked them to give us their preferred pronouns so we knew how to address them later on. And we asked them to let us know where they came from. So what their hometown was, so we could see where everyone was from and scattered about from the United States and abroad. And then we also asked them to share a fun fact about themselves, which helped me remember their names for the face. And it helped create a sense of community with the students. So I'll go ahead and show my screen. Here we go. So first, I just want to show you guys what FlipGrid looks like. So the first thing you have to do is create an educator account. It is free. So you just log in. And it gives you a sandbox course, which is really helpful for figuring out how to use these things. I will say the first thing you want to do is to not create your FlipGrid in here first if you're using Canvas and want to integrate it into Canvas. If you make it here, once you integrate into Canvas, it actually ends up remaking it. So just go ahead and save yourself the time. Don't make it here. Wait till you're in your Canvas site. But here I can show you in the sandbox course what you do in order to create one once you're up and going. So you can actually create a topic, and you have the title, you have the prompt. So this is where I put like, tell me about yourself, what's your first, last name, preferred pronouns, etc. The nice thing about FlipGrid is that you can use all these different integrations to add in extra stuff. So there is a Kahoot plugin. I did not use it, but it's there. There's also, you can record videos and you can put in YouTubes as part of the prompt if you need to. So if you're using it in like therapy or another topic, you could potentially put a link to a short video about that therapy topic, or maybe it's pathophysiology, and have the students reply to that. And then you can choose the recording time. You can do a moderation if you need to. So if you're talking about a sensitive topic and you don't want students just to be able to post whatever, but you want to review it first before it's active on the class board, you can do that. We didn't have any professionalism problems, so I don't know if this is something that is necessary for our level of learners, but it is an option. You can enable comments and closed captions if needed, and then you'll hit create topic. So the nice thing too is that FlipGrid has a lot of pre-made FlipGrids that you can search for in Discovery. So there's 31,000 topics already created, which is really awesome. And some of them are really highly done by organizations. So you see that.
Hang on, Sadie. Sorry.
So you can see that there's lots of institutions that have made some FlipGrids. And so it's a really fun way to get some of these organizations brought into the classroom if you find one related to your topic. So the way that you integrate it into your Canvas site, you actually go into assignments and you create an assignment. And so under the assignment, you'll put the name and the description, etc. You put the points that you want it to be worth, where you want it to fall into your grading rubric. So here you can see that we have a breakdown of different assignments. And then whether you want to change its percentage or score, complete or incomplete. Complete or incomplete is how we set it up, just so we could check mark it off, kind of thing. And then the submission type is the most important part to integrate it into your Canvas site. So you go to external tool, and then you have to have the external tool URL. So in the agenda, I threw this link here that will tell you all about integrating it into Canvas, and it will give you that URL that you need to enter into this box right here. So you want to enter that box in and you hit click find, and then I load it in, you can load it in a new tab. It will actually integrate it into your Canvas site so that the assignment actually looks like this for the students. So they don't have to go to a new website at all or follow a link to get to it. It's already integrated in. So this is what we use in order to introduce ourselves and the students to one another and introduce the students to us. We put the description here, and then you can add your response by going to record a spot response. So Alexis and I both added our videos in too, so that way the students could see us and know who we are and what was going on. The nice thing is you can track the views per student, so you can see who's looked at your videos and who's looked at each other. I didn't enable comments on this, but I think in the future I would have enabled comments so the classmates could have talked to each other about some of the fun facts. But you can see the different views, and I didn't do thumbs up or thumbs down. I did, or likes. I didn't want to create a sense of popularity, so I was a little worried about that at first. But I'm not sure if that should be a concern or not, but I was a little worried. So you can see that they actually went back and viewed each other's videos quite a bit. So there's a lot of activity in this FlipGrid. And I think it helped create a sense of community for them too, because they learned who is who and what they look like for each other. So if they're in groups with each other, they can kind of see, oh, who's in my group? I haven't met them yet. And since it was the first week of class, it was really nice. So I don't really want to show you my video, but I also don't want to show you guys a student video. I'll take the sacrifice and show you mine. So you can see that it's a minute and 30 seconds. You can add pictures, you can add text to it, kind of like you can do for Snapchat and other sites. It gives you 1 minute and 30 seconds. You can have closed captions on it for accessibility issues or concerns. So it's really nice to be able to have this option to introduce yourself in person. The nicest part about it for facilitators is this option that's integrated for grading. So instead of having to go through and go to FlipGrid and then watch the videos and go back and find them in my grade book, all I have to do is speed grader here. And it pulls up their video next to the grading. So here I can watch their video and then I can click, since I made it complete or incomplete, I can click complete, incomplete, or excused if they have to have excuse. And then I also put comments. So this made it very personalized for the students of, oh, hey, you're a math major. Your like classmates would probably really appreciate it if you offered to tutor them if they don't understand the topic. There are some students that had really crazy fun facts. I would comment back on them. So I commented on every student to kind of have a sense of engagement. There were a few students that commented back too, so that was nice because there was a little bit of back and forth within the grade book. So this was the integration. I think this is definitely the best piece of this because you could do video assignments for basically anything and then grade them right then and there while you're watching the video, not have to figure out which video goes with what student. So that is FlipGrid. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have about it.
So this is a question relating to the use of these tools. I think I put it in here, but it'd be cool for me to have access to this FlipGrid so that I can see the students and I don't have to make them do the same ice break again. Like I might do the exact same thing you did and then they go, what the heck? But if I could just, if we could share amongst ourselves and make certain that we aren't stepping on each other's activities, that would be really, really valuable. So I mean, this is, what you guys do is highly valuable and it would be nice to share it among the faculty so that we could do something that builds upon it or does something in a completely different direction.
Alexis did that with the P3s. She sent out the link to all the coordinators so they could watch it. We ended up getting permission from the students because we felt awkward about it, just sharing their, like, because they designed it for us, like, is it okay with us to share? And they all said it was fine. So she emailed out the link to the FlipGrids for the P3s because we felt the same way. Like we created all this, you should get to know them too, especially in the virtual environment.
And Katie might be able to help me, but I haven't figured out how to download the videos in order to share them. And my share link is not, it's like grayed out. So I don't know if that's because it was built in the course itself or not. So I'm not sure if Katie can help me figure it out or not.
Yeah, I can take a look and maybe there's an alternative to downloading where we could share the grid as opposed to the individual videos. It may be easier that way, but yeah, we can definitely figure out a way to kind of combine forces so it isn't becoming repetitive for students and maybe thinking of ways to build on that initial assignment, like what other kinds of introduction activities or icebreakers can you do using FlipGrid that aren't maybe like a fun fact and introduction kind of activity. Maybe it's you're assessing their level of knowledge about a topic, or when you hear, the word pharmacoeconomics, what comes to mind, is there anything that you know about this topic? Because FlipGrid is pretty flexible in that way, and you can use it for all these different kinds of video-based assignments. So I'm sure there are ways that we can think of to creatively kind of integrate it that isn't just that initial introductions kind of activity.
I'm on a like a mentee group of people, which is really helpful actually. And one of them uses FlipGrid for the students it's integrated into Canvas, so it's really easy to grade. It's not as easy to integrate into Blackboard, and Krista and I can tell you about how we had to record 63 to 64 video responses each, so we made sure they all felt heard because we couldn't type comments in. But they use it to have students like do two things. One of them uses it for having the students do a quick, like less than 2-minute answer to a nursing question. So the nurse is asking them if two things are compatible. And this basically, it's like getting a phone call, like they embed the phone call into the FlipGrid and then the student has to answer in under 2 minutes. And then another one is a quick recommendation to a provider. So those are two things that I was contemplating since P2s will be on Canvas next spring as some kind of short activities that I think would be probably pretty beneficial and actually really mimics what real world is like that other sites are using FlipGrid for outside of just introductions.
That was going to be my question. Has anybody used it for anything else other than introductions? I think it's great to use it. It builds that community in a course. And I'm thinking about this for the mental health elective and trying to do it because it's a smaller group of students. But have you done it repetitively by any chance through the semester for anything? Okay. But I like that idea of having the students do a recording to a question, maybe a drug information question that they're answering. Yeah, that's great.
It's also something you have to keep in mind is that they can see each other's responses. And I'm not sure if there's a way to turn it off to where they can't see responses until they respond or not. I haven't looked more into the settings since we just did it with the, with moderation. There you go, you could do it that way. But yes, because it's nice to be able to see the responses so students can have an example of how to like counsel or how to respond to drug information questions. It would be an interesting topic.
I just saw Laura also mentioned in the chat that it would be great to incorporate into P1 orientation and then share with coordinators. I think that makes a lot of sense from a kind of centralized perspective. So they're getting that when they, come right in the door, and then everyone has the chance to kind of see who is who and where everyone's coming from. She also mentioned it'd be perfect for the nursing questions as well.
And David, do you still do your elevator speech that they have to create?
No, but actually it sounds like a great idea. There's a bunch of things that, so I'm going to hit this little button here.
You're muted, David.
Well, you guys are making me anxious. There's so many things going on that I'm like going,
You were being funny because you're like, I'm going to hit this button, and then you muted yourself, but then you were still talking.
oh, that's what it was. I thought I was making myself talk. So, but that would be a great thing. There's I've been having them record pitches, like a 5-minute pitch of business plans, but there's like really smaller things that'd be really great. But the one thing is I got so much to do before January that you guys are freaking me out.
Yeah, I sent you more to do this morning too, so you're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, somebody has to be the worst faculty member. So maybe that'll be my niche.
I'll be your badge.
I also just wanted to add, because I understand the daunting nature of trying to incorporate these things and just prepare just so everything's workable for the spring. That I'm glad to, with a couple of faculty members, I've been meeting with them on like a once every 2 weeks kind of time frame, so that we can, get together and take a look at a particular assignment and kind of brainstorm, or if it would be helpful for me to give any feedback, that I can do that and kind of assist with the implementing any sort of technology tool component. And then we'll revisit in 2 weeks because we all have multiple projects and it's difficult in a really short period of time to turn around and have everything ready for the spring. So if anyone's interested in doing that, I'm always available to try and put an appointment on the calendar and figure it out on a longer term scale to make it more manageable going into the spring.
I can say I'm just happy Alexis is co-coordinating with me in the spring, so I know what the heck's going on. But the one thing, I'm a visual learner, so seeing these things or having it, even sitting with me is, Krista and I did this time. I'm like, just sit with me on Zoom and walk me through it. And I do much better that way because I try to go in and find these things that we posted. And then I'm overwhelmed by all the stuff there, trying to figure out which one is what and what to use. So it would be great too if I'm going to ask Alexis to be my teacher along with coordination this spring. But I don't know if, I know you can't be available for everyone, but I know that I think to me, 5 minutes with you to show me how to walk through it is much more efficient for me than trying to find it and, and then, or you direct me where it's at and then show me once and then I can watch the video. But I'm just a little overwhelmed with all these tools and which one to use when.
I also very recently requested the creation of a Google group for this group so I can add everyone who's been attending, and it acts as kind of like a listserv. So as opposed to like a Google chat where you're getting notifications, we would all be in the one Google group, and we could use the group to email those sorts of questions. We can see how that goes. I think the Canvas discussion board is a good idea, but I think it's kind of limiting in terms of being able, you have to go to Canvas, go to the discussion board, be very purposeful in seeking out that discussion board, which can be challenging. Even myself, I think, oh, I haven't checked that discussion board in a while, maybe I should go back to it. So I'm working on creating a Google group so hopefully it can be more of a, if I need something and I can't figure out where it is, and like a ticket is not really the best avenue, if it's a more specific kind of a question or an application question, obviously I'll be on that group, and we all, as a collection of a wealth of knowledge and resources from our experiences, which is part of why I think this group is really helpful. We can probably better answer those questions or share what we've all done through that group. So hopefully that'll be a resource we can use moving forward to communicate outside of these sessions.
Alexis and Krista, can I just ask you, when you use FlipGrid for Blackboard, are those just two independent things that you have to do?
Yeah, like I just did a little Google search, and Katie might be able to say more about it, but I couldn't find in a quick search a way if there was any new updates to where you could embed it in and grade in Blackboard. You can like embed the link and everything.
Right.
I just didn't see that there was a connection between that grading piece. But Blackboard did, I think they had an update, right, Katie? Because I know now when I like go to upload things and stuff, it's a different look now. So there might be some new integration buttons that I just haven't seen, but that's just been in the last 2 weeks. So I'm not sure, Katie might know more. But it was kind of a pain because we did have to they did not have comments enabled at that point at the beginning of the semester. In the last month, they enabled you to text comments onto their videos, which is really helpful for providing like quick feedback on the videos directly. Mm-hmm. But so it's just that there's that transcription basically from doing the FlipGrid feedback and assessment and then putting that grade manually then into the Blackboard gradebook, unless Katie knows more of an update than I do.
And the Blackboard update was a complete surprise to myself and most other people. Yeah, I went in, I was working with Sharon on something in Blackboard, like embedding a Kaltura video, and she was like, is there an update? I'm like, no one has sent out any announcement about this, but that happens sometimes. Yeah, and the rich text editor is like completely different now. I don't know that the update has changed the core functionality of Blackboard. I won't say that I'm an expert in this update, to be completely honest. However, it may be more appropriate. So in the past, I kind of thought of FlipGrid as, okay, this is more of an informal exercise, not necessarily something that I would recommend you go through and grade because of that integration issue that Canvas kind of fixes with SpeedGrader. However, so it may be kind of a tweaking of the parameters of the assignment, or you can kind of do a workaround kind of thing where, okay, once you submit to the FlipGrid, go and take this one question Blackboard quiz that said, if you click yes, you get a 100%. If you don't submit it, you don't get credit. So you kind of automate it that way instead of having to go in and give individual points, just completeness points. But it's not, in my experience, it hasn't been as seamless as the SpeedGrader integration with Canvas, and I don't know that exists.
but it works to post the link to it, and then you can watch their videos and grade them with a rubric, and then you could post the rubric or whatever. So if you're looking for a recording device for them to easily do and they're familiar with, I think it would work.
Thank you.
And like Alexis mentioned previously, FlipGrid only allowed video comments, and they very recently allowed text-based comments, which I think is a really big advantage. So you're not having to respond with a video every time, even though it's great. Sometimes, you know, we're not feeling like we want to be on video, whether you're a faculty member or a student. So that was kind of one of the pitfalls of FlipGrid from my perspective, whereas like VoiceThread will let you do text comments, audio comments, or video comments. Hopefully FlipGrid will allow you to do some audio comments at some point, but that at least gives students more flexibility to respond to their peers in a more informal way.
It's nice with a timer too, because if you had an assignment and you set it and you're like, you have 2 minutes to do this video, it cuts you off at 2 minutes. So you can't go on and on and on forever. And they can re-record it as many times as they want, so you can preview it before you post it. So it's really nice to be able to see that if you are trying to counsel a patient in 2 minutes and you can't do it, and the first way you tried, you can retry again.
And I think that limiting is also important because you can do a similar thing in VoiceThread where you limit participants to a certain number of minutes for their response. And you can really hone in on your activity that way and make it so, you know, your time is also taken into the equation when you're having to go through and grade, you know, so it's not, this person's got an 8-minute recording, this one's got a 30-second recording, this is the expectation, and that's the limit.
Can I ask a somewhat unrelated question, but it's technology. So when we're all move over to Canvas, does Blackboard go away completely? And if so, like we have all those links under Blackboard to get to other places. Will those sit somewhere else?
So the university has, so basically we have an agreement with both Blackboard and Canvas for this full year, but that agreement with Blackboard will end in June of 2021, which is when we will no longer have access to Blackboard on a university level. So regardless of graduate, PharmD. And there are some resources. So Laura and I have been having this conversation about, do you want to import from Blackboard or do you not want to import from Blackboard, and what's the best way to go about doing that? And another university has put together a really helpful, really detailed kind of step-by-step guide that outlines what comes over well and what really does not come over so well. And the general consensus is that evaluating what you really want to bring over from Blackboard in the first place is probably the best place to start, because you may end up creating a lot more work for yourself by trying to import everything you had in Blackboard. It's like a square peg round hole equation where Blackboard organizes things in nested folders, Canvas uses modules and other kind of nuances that are not going to transfer very well. So we can look at what you want to bring over and see what the best way to do that is.
It's not, that's not actually, I mean, that's useful, but actually what I was asking is, you know how you log into Blackboard and then there are all those things. I know I could get to GradTrack by putting GradTrack dot something, but the way I get to GradTrack always, I've never gotten there any other way, is to go through Blackboard. I'm sure I can be trained to do it differently, and I'm sure there are multiple ways to do it, but like that's my jumping off point for a lot of other things. And I was just wondering, like, is there going to be another landing place for a lot of different links, or do we just need to learn how to get to places in different ways? I
understand. Sorry, I better understand your question now. No. So That will not, so Canvas has, as you've been in Canvas, a different landing page than Blackboard does. And I don't anticipate that landing page looking like the one that we have in Blackboard. Instead, using something like, well, Blackboard organization, like we had in Blackboard, it'll look a lot more like a Canvas course once it's in Canvas. Something like either that or maybe the faculty resources site. So I think we'll have to figure out organizationally where we would want to put all those links, but I would anticipate we do create a resource like what we had in Blackboard. It'll just be in a different place in Canvas centrally.
Okay, yeah, because there's like material on Blackboard that I don't actually know who the owner is, like radiation safety training or something like that. Like has historically been the only way I tell my folks how to get that training. And I would have, I mean, obviously it'll get figured out eventually, but I'm just trying to think ahead, like what kind of things are going to confuse me moving forward. So anyway, okay, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Did anybody else have any questions? I think we can get like five minutes back before next meetings, if not, but yeah, I appreciate everybody coming out today and our presenters, of course. April just had to jump off for another meeting, but I think it's really helpful to see these things in action and what you all have been able to do and being able to share those resources so we can across the board, you know, make better activities and build on activities that we've already kind of implemented and work well. It's really exciting to see that. So I'm hoping we can continue doing these in the future. I think we have one more this semester. And then we'll kind of revisit in the spring. And yeah, as always, if you guys have any questions or if you want to work on anything, have an idea, shoot me an email, put in a ticket. Happy to kind of work through those things and brainstorm, even if it's an abstract idea. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll go ahead and get this recording up as soon as I can.